Have you ever wondered what lies at the heart of the Israel-Palestine conflict, one of the most enduring struggles of the modern world? Let's journey back in time to unearth the roots of this complex issue. Our story begins in the late 19th century, in a region known as Palestine, a land rich in history and cultural diversity. Here, two distinct communities, the Jews and the Arabs, coexisted, each with their unique culture, faith, and aspirations. Yet, beneath this apparent harmony, tensions were simmering, fueled by competing nationalistic sentiments and territorial claims. Fast forward to the early 20th century, a time when the world was being reshaped by the forces of war and diplomacy. Enter the Balfour Declaration of 1917, a letter from the British Foreign Secretary, Arthur Balfour, to Lord Rothschild, a leading figure in the British Jewish community. In this letter, Balfour expressed Britain's support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. While this was a moment of jubilation for the Jewish community, it struck a discordant note with the Arab population. They saw this as an infringement on their rights and a threat to their own nationalistic aspirations. The stage was set for a clash of interests, and the Palestine region became a hotbed of tension, teetering on the brink of a conflict that would reverberate across the decades. However, it's essential to remember that the Balfour Declaration didn't act in isolation. It was a product of its time, shaped by the geopolitical realities of the early 20th century, including World War I, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and the rise of new nation-states. As we peel back the layers of this intricate history, we see that the Israel-Palestine conflict is not merely a dispute over land. It's a complex tapestry woven from threads of history, culture, identity, and politics. As we shall see, these early seeds of discord would soon grow into a complex and multifaceted conflict. The year 1948 marked a turning point in the history of the Middle East. It saw the birth of a new nation and the start of a war that would shape the region for decades to come. In the wake of the horrors of the Second World War, international sympathy for the plight of Europe's Jews was at an all-time high. This led to the United Nations passing Resolution 181 in November of 1947, which proposed the partitioning of British-controlled Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem under international administration. On May 14, 1948, the Jewish community in Palestine seized the opportunity and declared the establishment of the State of Israel. The very next day, a coalition of Arab states, including Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, and Syria, launched a military intervention, marking the start of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, also known as the War of Independence or Nakba, depending on which side of the conflict one identifies with. This war was a time of turmoil and transformation for both Israelis and Palestinians. On one hand, for the Jews, it represented the culmination of a long-held dream, a state of their own after centuries of persecution. On the other, for the Palestinians, it was a catastrophe, a Nakba, resulting in a mass displacement of people from their homes. The war raged on for nearly a year, with both sides experiencing significant loss and hardship. When the dust finally settled, Israel had not only survived the onslaught but had also managed to expand its territory beyond the original UN partition plan. The Palestinian community, however, found themselves either living as a minority in the newly formed Israel, as refugees in neighboring Arab countries, or in the West Bank and Gaza, territories that were occupied by Jordan and Egypt respectively. The 1948 war ended in an armistice, but the seeds of future conflicts had already been sown. Indeed, the aftermath of the war set the stage for the enduring Israeli-Palestinian conflict that continues to this day, a testament to the deep-seated issues and complex histories that are entwined in this small but highly contested piece of land. In 1967, a mere 6 days changed the face of the Middle East forever. This period, known as the Six-Day War, was a pivotal moment in the ongoing conflict between Israel and Palestine. Let's rewind a bit. The roots of the Six-Day War can be traced back to rising tensions in the region. Israel, feeling threatened by the mobilization of Egyptian forces along the Israeli border, launched a series of preemptive strikes on Egypt. This move triggered a chain of events that led to a full-scale war involving Jordan and Syria as well. In the span of just 6 days, Israel managed to not only repel the attacks, but also seize control of key territories, including the West Bank, East Jerusalem, the Gaza Strip, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Golan Heights. This territorial expansion was a significant victory for Israel, but presented a new set of challenges for the Palestinians, who found themselves under Israeli occupation. This war had profound consequences, both immediate and long-term. For Israel, the victory boosted national morale and solidified its military dominance in the region. However, it also meant the responsibility of governing a large Palestinian population, which led to a host of political, social, and economic issues. For Palestinians, the aftermath of the war meant living under Israeli occupation, leading to a significant shift in their daily lives and fueling resentment and resistance. The war also highlighted the vulnerability of Arab nations, prompting them to reconsider their strategies and alliances. The Six-Day War also had a profound impact on international relations and the dynamics of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The United Nations Security Council Resolution 242, adopted later in 1967, emphasized the inadmissibility of the acquisition of territory by war, setting the foundation for future peace negotiations. The Six-Day War left a lasting imprint on the region, setting the stage for future confrontations. The conflict didn't resolve the underlying issues, but instead complicated them further, adding new dimensions to an already complex problem. It's a stark reminder of how a short span of time can have long-lasting effects, shaping the course of history and the lives of millions. In the 1990s, a glimmer of hope emerged in the form of the Oslo Accords. An unprecedented step towards peace, the Oslo Accords were a series of agreements between Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO. The first of these was signed in Washington, D.C. on September 13, 1993. The Accords established a framework for self-governance in parts of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. They proposed a 5-year transition period during which Israel would gradually withdraw its forces from these territories. In return, the PLO recognized Israel's right to exist and renounced terrorism. The Oslo Accords were a significant breakthrough, marking the first direct face-to-face agreement between Israel and the PLO. They promised mutual recognition and the possibility of a two-state solution, offering a vision of coexistence that had seemed impossible for decades. Yet, the Accords were not without controversy, and they faced intense opposition on both sides. Critics argued that the agreements were too vague, leaving key issues like the status of Jerusalem, the right of return for Palestinian refugees, and the borders of the future Palestinian state unresolved. Despite the initial optimism, the Accords failed to bring about lasting peace. The implementation process was marred by violence and political turmoil. The assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin in 1995 by a Jewish extremist was a devastating blow to the peace process, and the Second Intifada, or uprising, which erupted in 2000, effectively ended the Oslo process. The Accords did, however, leave a lasting impact. They established the Palestinian Authority, which governs parts of the West Bank and Gaza Strip to this day. They also set a precedent for direct negotiations between Israelis and Palestinians. While the Oslo Accords represented a step towards peace, they also exposed the deep-seated issues that continue to fuel the conflict. They revealed the complexities of pursuing peace in a region torn by historical grievances and competing national narratives. Ultimately, the Oslo Accords remain a poignant reminder of the elusive quest for peace in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Today, the Israel-Palestine conflict continues to be a source of geopolitical tension and human suffering. As we journey to the present day, the situation in the region remains precarious. The peace process seems to have stalled, with both parties holding fast to their territorial claims and political ideologies. In the heart of the Middle East, the land contested by Israel and Palestine continues to be a tinderbox, its sparks igniting tensions that reverberate around the globe. Let's take a moment to reflect on the key points we've explored. We started with the genesis of conflict, tracing the roots of this dispute back to the early 20th century. The birth of Israel in 1948 and the subsequent war set the stage for the decades of strife that followed. The Six-Day War in 1967 and its aftermath further complicated the issue, with Israel capturing and occupying territories that are still points of contention today. Then, we delved into the Oslo Accords, that glimmer of hope in the 90s. These agreements, while not perfect, marked the first time that both Israel and the Palestine Liberation Organization officially recognized each other. However, the peace process that followed has been fraught with setbacks and disappointments, reflecting the complexity and depth of the issues at hand. The current situation underscores the gravity and enduring nature of this conflict. It's a sobering reminder of the human cost of geopolitical disputes and the difficulties that arise when trying to reconcile historical grievances, political ideologies, and aspirations for sovereignty and self-determination. But it's not just about understanding the past, it's about learning from it, recognizing patterns, and seeking potential pathways towards a peaceful resolution. This history, as intricate and fraught as it is, provides us with the context to understand the present, and importantly, to envision a future where, hopefully, a sustainable peace can be achieved. As we have seen, the Israel-Palestine conflict is a complex issue with deep historical roots. Understanding its history is key to grasping its present and envisioning its future.